Hi, my name is Shannon, and for the Cultural Immersion Project, I have chosen to study the Muslim population, specifically second generation. Most historians believe Islam originated in about the 7th century around Mecca and Medina, which is in present day Saudi Arabia. Some Muslims do believe, though, that it started even earlier with some of the Christian prophets, such as Jesus and David, and that they actually practice Islam as well. Muhammad ibn Abdullah was the prophet for Islam and is considered to be the messenger of God in this religion. He was born and raised in Mecca. He was orphaned pretty young, and he was raised by his uncle and his aunt. He began secluding himself and praying in a cave from a younger age, and would often be secluded for days or even weeks at a time. And this is actually where it's believed that he was first sent a vision from the angel Gabriel, and that this is where he started to receive his revelations from God. He began preaching these revelations several years later in Mecca, but was met with persecution from the polytheists of that time, as Christianity was the major religion back then. So he and his followers decided to leave Mecca and relocate to Medina, where they could practice in peace. Once he gained a larger following, he went back to Mecca with about 10,000 of his followers, and in a very peaceful and manner with no bloodshed, he retook Mecca and was able to practice Islam in peace there as well. By the time he died, most of the Arabian Peninsula had converted to Islam, but there was a slight disagreement. Several months prior, it's said that Muhammad had named his successor, I believe it was his nephew, had named his successor in his final pilgrimage. After his death, however, a couple Muslim men met and named another successor. And so this has created the division of the two major groups of Islam, the Sunnis and the Shias. The Sunnis believed that this other man was the rightful next prophet, and then the Shias believed that Muhammad's nephew was the rightful prophet. There's really not a huge difference in between the two, but they do disagree on that. So Islam continued to spread throughout North Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East for the next several hundred years. It was actually Islamic civilization led to many scientific and cultural centers. It was a very there was a lot of thinking and going on at that time. During the 13th and the 14th century, there were some Mongol invasions in Asia, and then the population loss from the Black Plague that kind of led to a decline in Islam civilization, but many other civilizations as well. But then the Ottomans, Safavids, and Mughals of the early modern period, when they came around, they were able to kind of bring back Islamic civilization and all of that. In the early 20th century, right after the Industrial Revolution, many of these Islamic countries began falling under the control of European powers. The need for oil, I think, was probably one of the main reasons that these countries started to fall under control, just being bought out by these powerful European countries. Around the same time as the Industrial Revolution was happening, another sect of Islam came about. Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab is the founder of what is known as Wahhabism. It's basically a very ultra-conservative and Puritan form of Islam. It was directed mainly at the Sunnis, at trying to eliminate anything that was idolatry or was just not related to pure Islam. He had a small following. He was raised in a rural area of Arabia, and he eventually formed an alliance with a local leader, Muhammad bin Saud. The promise was basically political obedience from Wahhab in exchange for the protection of Wahhabism and the assurance that it would flourish. Saud's successors maintained this alliance, and eventually in 1932, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was formed. Today, there are a lot of stereotypes surrounding Muslims. I don't think many people know that there are different sects of Islam, just as there are different sects of Catholicism. But the Sunnis and the Shias seem to be grouped up with the Wahhabis, and the political group that's been gaining media attention, ISIS, actually it identifies with Wahhabism and not Sunni or Shia Islam. So the idea that Muslims just in general are terrorists is completely false, and it's actually these ultra-conservative, small little subgroups that are giving the rest of these people a bad name. Islamic immigration in the U.S. primarily began after the Civil War, as has been a steady stream throughout the past 100 years or so with all of the conflicts that have been going on. So the book I chose to read was Saladin, Hero of Islam by Geoffrey Hindley. And basically Saladin was a real man around the 10th century, and he's basically credited with having united all of the Muslim peoples on the Arabian Peninsula. At the time there was some fighting going on, so he's was essentially the one who brought them all together and united them under Islam. At the same time that he was alive, the Crusades were also happening. And so England had taken Jerusalem from the Palestinians. And so Saladin is also credited with having taken back Jerusalem in the Third Crusade. This was the battle between him and Richard the Lionheart. And though they never met, it's said that both of them had respect for each other as leaders. Saladin also became the Sultan of Egypt and Syria at some point. He had fought several wars in the area and gained the respect of surrounding leaders, and so he was declared the Sultan after some battles. For the film, I chose Journey to Mecca, directed by Bruce Neibauer. It's basically about the journey of Ibn Battuta, who was a law student in Morocco, about the 10th century, and basically this is about his 18th month-long pilgrimage to Mecca. He decides to make this on his own. It's based on a true story. The journey was about 3,000 miles long, and he completed this alone. On the way, he was attacked and almost killed by some highwaymen, but upon discovering that he was a pilgrim, they decided to let him live, and eventually actually helped him all the way to Cairo, where he was supposed to meet some friends. And basically they arranged that he would pay them once they got there. He wound up continuing on and traveling around Asia all the way to China for about 29 years before returning home to Morocco. Throughout the film, he is extremely devoted, no matter what, to his faith, whether he's being beaten or walking through the desert with little to no water. He is so set on getting to Mecca and experiencing this, and it was just very, very moving to see that kind of dedication to the faith. So for the event, I was invited by one of my friends who was Muslim to attend a birthday party for her aunt. It was a very social experience. There was a lot of family. They even flew in a grandma from Ethiopia to be there, and it was very lively, lots of food and traditional music. Most of them wore in their traditional African Ethiopian attire, brightly colored skirts and shirts. It was a lot of fun. And I also had the chance last year to participate in Ramadan. I was in Dubai for the first week, and had met some locals who encouraged me and my boyfriend to participate. And so Ramadan basically is the 9th month in the the Islamic calendar, and it's said that this is the time that Muhammad received his revelations from God. So for this whole month, everyone fasts from sunup to sundown, no water, no food. It was definitely a challenge. It was about 110 degrees and 100% humidity, and it was a really humbling experience to realize what a luxury water is. But yeah, so I didn't eat or drink, and then at sundown they have what is called iftar, and that's essentially breaking fast in the evening meal. And so typically you'll have like a couple of dates and some water, a simple meal to kind of get your stomach back into the zone. And then so we met these friends that we met them at their house, and there were several other people there. And so after the dates and the water, they broke off to go do their sunset prayer, and we didn't partake in that just because we aren't Muslim. And then once they were done with that, it lasted about 10 minutes, and once they were done with that, we had a big feast, dinner. There was lots of tabbouleh salad, pita bread, different types of meats, vegetables, biryani rice. It was delicious. And so I did that for about a week, and it was a really great experience it was definitely good to realize and to understand the connection that these people have to the faith, and just how far they're willing to go to show their loyalty. It was a really cool experience to be able to do that. For my interview, I chose to interview my coworker, who is a 22-year-old Ethiopian girl, the second generation, who is also Islamic. Her parents had her shortly after they themselves immigrated from Ethiopia, and they've stayed very close to their roots. Her parents both pray daily. I believe it's 5 or 6 times a day for Islam. In Islam that you pray. I believe she only prays once or twice a day, but she is very rigid about when she does. And she's still very conservative as far as the dress. Most Muslim women are required to either wear a full hijab or just be covered up to neck down to the arms and full legs covered. She wears the hijab more often than not, but and she will occasionally not wear it, and that's a choice that most girls will make at a certain point in their lives. But so they're very close to their roots. They practice Ramadan every single year, and will often have big gatherings of friends and family, and bring extended family out from Ethiopia, or they go over there themselves and spend time there. She recently just came back from, I believe, a 3-month-long trip from over there, and she was with a lot of extended family and in the traditional clothing of Ethiopia. My coworker is very actively involved in political ongoings of today. She likes to go to attend the rallies, Black Lives Matter rallies. She's very into that and being aware of what's going on. And she disclosed to me that she has experienced some discrimination throughout these types of events, either from people of a different race, people, whatever, just being hateful. But she has a very positive attitude about it. She believes that just by talking about race and religion and gaining better understandings on these types of topics, that we can begin to realize that not all of these groups are bad, and we need to read past the media headlines and look a little bit deeper into what's actually going on before we make these assumptions and these stereotypes. Thank you for watching my cultural immersion video on Muslim culture, specifically second generation. I hope I offered some useful insight into this culture and religion, and I hope everyone has a great day.